I'd like to share something with you. Now, what I'm going to share is going to contradict. So, first of all, let me say that it's this. What I'm going to share is just how I experience reality. So I think it's worth sharing because it's interesting. Because I have searched relentlessly for decades for anyone else who experienced reality in this way. I've been totally open-minded to the possibility that it could be anybody and it could be communicated to me if they were to share their experience in any way, but it wouldn't matter. But what I was looking for was someone that was having a similar experience. And I've been vigilant looking for those. So it's not like I have searched and scoured. I have gone through countless YouTube videos, spiritual websites, spiritual books, seminars, workshops, all that stuff for decades. Intensely. I was never looking to awaken or have an enlightenment experience or to have anything even like any sort of change whatsoever. Because, and this is part of the experience, this peculiar experience that I'm having, is that it's clear to me that I don't change, that I'm absolutely changeless. So how can I awaken? Get enlightened. I mentioned non-duality and other spiritual endeavors that I was involved with, but I want to just go to non-duality because that's kind of where I ended up in my quest to find someone that had an experience that was that just like the same experience I was having, or at least close. And so what I'm going to be sharing is, in a way, probably closest to non-duality and closest to the most radical variation of non-duality that is you could find being expressed in videos on YouTube by quite a number of non-dual teachers or people who maybe say they're not teachers but just talk about non-duality or the death of the self or that there is no self and that everything's just a story. So my experience is closest to theirs. So this is why I ended up listening to non-duality for quite a while, a lot of the different audios and videos, because somewhat close to, like, wow, someone's actually kind of seems to be close, describing their experience to be close to, it's describing something close to my experience. So I was like, wow, I'd have found something here. But what I want to say is that, and another thing is that I'm not trying to have this experience. I'm not like trying to be clever here or have a unique perspective or a unique point of view. This is just happening. I have no control over it at all. I mean, that I can tell. None. And in fact, I have actually put a lot of energy into, over the years, over a long period of time, in many different ways, of trying to I've tried to somehow find a way to kind of have more of a normal experience. In other words, not only was I'm not trying to have this unique experience, I've been trying to not have this unique experience, and it's hopeless. There's just no possible way. Whatever it is, whatever my experience is, whatever this experience is just happening. And I have no clue as to whether or not that's good or bad, or if I have any judgment on it at all. So, and what I'm doing here is I'm not sharing my opinion or my beliefs or what I think is right or wrong. What I'm doing is simply sharing my experience. That's all. So, and I don't know if it has any value. I don't know if it's meaningful at all. I don't know if it's accurate, as in that my experience in some way reflects the truth about reality. I have no idea if that's the case, if it's right. I just have, the only thing I can say is it is my experience. So and even that I'm not sure about, but it does appear to be my experience. So, as I said, non-duality is probably the closest that I found to the way that I experience reality. But what you're going to hear me say, basically, in a way, if you choose to hear it that way, is going to sound like me completely contradicting what every single non-dual teacher, current day and throughout history, have said. So, and I'm not saying that, so it's going to totally contradict what all of these teachers are saying and have said. Completely contradicted. But I am not saying in any way that what I am sharing with you is right. It's just my experience. I'm simply reporting the experience. So, it's like I'm a camera and a microphone, a motion picture camera and a microphone, and I'm just collecting raw data, and I'm basically just reprocessing it and editing it, cleaning it up a little bit, and then sharing it. So I'm just sharing the experience. So I will tell you that I have shared this to varying degrees and with varying subtlety or intensity. So sometimes just kind of dropping hints to see if someone else that I suspect, maybe at a spiritual conference or some sort of non-dual teacher that I'm talking to or group leader, sometimes I've dropped hints to see if they have this experience, or sometimes I've just asked straight out. I've told people this is my experience, and I've done it in lots of different ways. So subtly, intensely, more casually. And every single time, no matter how I have shared this, it has always met resistance. Every single person I have ever shared this with in my entire life has rejected it completely. And actually, in probably every single circumstance, each person I've shared this with has tried to talk me out of it and tell me that it's wrong, that I'm wrong, that it can't possibly be true, what I'm saying. And of course, I will always say, well, I'm not trying to say it's true. I'm just saying that it's my experience. And people will put a lot of effort into, every single person I've ever shared this with, will put a lot of effort into trying to convince me that it's not my experience, that it's just not possible. Try to tell me what my experience is. Now, if this to you sounds like, and I'm just checking this out, and I just want to clear the air. If this to you sounds like I'm offended by this, or it's painful, or I feel like I've been hurt or injured in some way, that's just not at all the case. So, because I just don't have the experience of change. So, what I am is changeless, like completely changeless. And so, I don't have the experience of being hurt by things that happen to me, because that would be subtracting away from me somehow or injuring me, and I just don't experience change. So I'm just sharing an experience. And it's not something that I think, wow, this only happens to me. And it doesn't happen to anybody else. It seems, actually, if you look just out at the world and just human interactions in general, with an eye for this, or an ear for this, you'll notice that it is a very extremely common. Actually, it's so prevalent that this dynamic, or this way of interacting, and telling people what their experience is. It just goes on all the time, almost everywhere. It's actually kind of stunning, I think. So, the people I've shared this with over the years, and again, this is a very, very broad spectrum of people. People who are very left-brained and logical, not involved with spirituality at all, have totally rejected this, and spiritual teachers, and spiritual people, and people in the spiritual community, and people at workshops and all kinds of things, and whoever I've ever talked to, people that are very spiritual, have actually aggressively tried to talk me out of this. And the reaction to it, it is dependable. It happens again and again and again and again, and it's never failed to rise up, that reaction, if I share this. So what is this? So part of the experience that I have shared with people, which they flat out reject, and everybody, people that are making YouTubes on non-duality, that I've spoken to directly, have just rejected this. So one of the main, I'll say one of the characteristics of my experience of reality, and this is not to say that there are a lot of characteristics to this, or that it's very nuanced or complex. It's that the experience is the opposite of that in a way. It's simplicity, to such a degree that it is absolute simplicity. I mean, it couldn't be more simple. But the world is, or appears, very complicated and confusing. And so there's a lot of nuance in the world. There's a lot of belief systems. There's a lot of ideas, beliefs that people hold, and ideas people have, and judgments people have. And so the experience that I'm having, whatever it is, it's not that there's a lot of characteristics to it. It's that the world has a lot of characteristics. And so in each one of those situations or dynamics, that my experience, it's just different than what I've seen anywhere else. And again, I'm not trying to make it be different, it just is that way. I have no idea why. One of the characteristics of my experience of reality is that I have never had the sense of knowing anything. Not once. So, and this is one of the things, and there's a lot of different aspects to my experience. So, the other part of this is that it very clearly, I experience that everyone else is actually experiencing the same thing. And very apparently pretending that they're not. As if they are knowers in possession of knowledge. Just role playing. So I don't think that this is a unique experience for me. It looks to me, with absolute clarity, it's irrefutable, that everybody else is experiencing reality the exact same way that I am. But when I say I don't mean this character, this person. And so that's when it gets into kind of this non-duality thing. But anyway, so I don't have the experience of knowing. I have never known a single thing. Not once. I have waited for something to arise that I could actually recognize as something that I know, knowledge, something that is absolutely knowable. And I've tried to know things. I've tried to take things that were maybe a belief or an idea and try to know it. And I've never had the experience. For decades, I have tried to just know one single thing. Just have the experience of knowing. And it's never happened. Not one single time. And so naturally, it is completely obvious and logical for me to assume that there is no knowing. Now, in my experience. And so I'm not going to say knowing doesn't exist. But if I just go by my experience, there's no such thing as knowing. And that's not to say that there's this definitely an experience of a me here, because there is, just like I've been unable to find knowing, I have yet to find a me. But I just will use that talk. I mean, how else are you going to talk? So from my perspective, which means from the perspective that whatever, it seems like it's my perspective. It's happening here, in this body, in this time and space. I mean, that's just the appearance. And so for all of that, I just call that my experience, or me. But can I find a me? No, I haven't. Exactly like I have never found knowing, or that which can be known. So, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that my search would culminate in arriving at non-duality, because there I found one component of my experience, which is can't find a self. So I would find again and again the claim that there are people saying that there is no self here. But in every single circumstance, every single instance that I found, historically and current day, every single person who was talking about non-duality would basically essentially say there's no self, but then they would share knowledge. So there was no self, but there was knowing. And this just seems like a complete incongruency to me, because to me, self and knowing are the same thing, and neither one actually exists. Now, the concept of no self is totally acceptable and very current, and it's readily accepted and practiced by many people in the spiritual community. But no knowing is rejected absolutely. So, and in my experience, there is no knowing. Or at least I can't find knowing. So I don't know if there actually is no knowing. It's just that I cannot, or have yet to find the experience of, or have yet to experience knowing anything. I'm not saying there is no such thing as knowing, but if I'm just going by my experience and not what people are telling me, there's no such thing as knowing. And this is one of the things that everybody tries to talk me out of. In one way or another, they will insist that there are things that I know. I know that I'm awake. I know that I'm talking. I know that I'm standing right now. I know that I woke up this morning. I mean, people will just lecture me about all these things that I know. You know this, you know that. You know things. It actually infuriates people, it seems. And so my experience is what you could call a total absence of knowing or knowledge. And it's obviously, if it's a complete absence of knowing or knowledge, it means I don't see it anywhere that I look. And everyone in the world, if you notice, people seem to know a lot. There seems to be a lot of knowledge that people possess. And the way that I experience that is that it's not actually knowledge. And nobody knows anything. So I'm not saying that that's the case, that it's a fact. I'm just simply saying that that's my experience. So that's just the way that the world looks and feels and sounds to me. It's a visceral experience. It's absolutely crystal clear. And absolutely without any doubt. So when I share that with you, it's like I'm just sharing a fact. So it's just something that looks like an absolute factual truth of reality to me, without any question whatsoever. But at the same time, I can only say that that's my experience. So I experience it as absolutely true. Does that mean anything? I don't know. I'm not telling you it is absolutely true. I have no conviction that just because I have an experience that makes it true. But as I experience it, it is irrefutable fact. So my experience is that you don't know anything. One single thing. You've never known one single thing. And nobody has ever known one single thing. And there is no knowledge. So I'm not saying that you don't know one single thing, and I'm not saying, because it's just my experience. I have no idea what's actually, is the experience mentally created? Am I dreaming the entire reality right now? Am I in some sort of holographic projection? Maybe through technology? The whole world? I mean, because I have no idea. It could be that. So I don't even know. So I can, at best I can say that I'm having the experience. It seems. So, but I don't even know that. I mean, I'm fairly confident that I'm having the experience. I have this experience of experiencing things. But knowing and knowledge, I've looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. Everywhere. And in every person I've ever met, in every teaching, every philosophy, every theory, every observation, every study, everything. Find experience, but no knowing. And no knower. I simply don't have the experience. And I don't have, what I'm saying here is that my experience is that all the knowers in the world, all of the people and individuals who know things, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't experience that as actually being real. When I look for knowing, every time I've looked for knowing, for knowledge, for the experience of knowing, I've never found it. And it's exactly the same way as when I look for the individual, here or in any other person that I meet, and every single interaction I've had with any person throughout the history of my life. I have the exact same experience in that I find no knowledge, I find no individuals. And in fact, I have the experience I have is that whatever the individual is and whatever knowledge is, they're the same exact thing. It's not an idea. This is just how I experience reality. So individual people and knowledge, it's both of those things I experience as, the best I could say is thought. Like, it's just, they're both a product of thinking. They both are thinking. But when you try to reach for it and grab it and find it, there's nothing there. It's just a belief in knowledge and a belief in the individual. Individuals, or individuality, and knowledge, or what is known, are different, like, as I experience them, like things in your dream, when you have a dream at night, are different. So there's different things in your dream, but it was all just your dream. So there's no real difference. It's just a dream. So the difference between individuality and knowledge is there really a difference? Things that kind of pop up in a dream momentarily. And I see no individuals and no knowledge or knowing. Because the best I can tell, that being me, being an individual, consists of only one thing, which you could explain in its simplest terms as it's an idea. Expressed in the statement, I know I'm an individual. Just that statement. But the thing is I think that in my experience, that's how an individual is generated moment to moment. It's never actually generated. It is only a result of that thought. Or more specifically, it only is that thought. I know I'm an individual. And so, I don't even know if there's a world. And I don't know if I'm a me, if there's a person here, or an individual. But it is, the level of clarity I have on this is what I would say is absolute. There is no doubt in it. Because I'm simply communicating or sharing what I am. I'm not trying to figure anything out or try to understand anything. I'm just like, this is just what I am, so I'm just sharing it. So if I want to introspect and let's say turn within or meditate or try to seek the peaceful center within myself, that if I just attempt to do that process, somehow of turning within to a quiet space within or a peaceful center, the thing that I find is that I have no idea where to direct my attention. And it's not like I'm lost. It's like I'm trying to direct my attention towards myself, and myself is not located in any particular place. And it's not that it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It is not knowable. And so if I direct an inquiry within, what I find is confusion. It is if I'm trying to find it. But really what I find is no question gets answered as to which direction to go or what I am or where I am but at the same time, as I said, is without doubt. I mean, literally without doubt. I mean, I wish I could say this in a way that it's the mystery that I find when I turn within, when I try to find a direction to go and I can't even find a direction. No idea where to go and what to do. And I can't detect any sort of characteristics of what it is I'm trying to aim at, but amidst all of that, it is self-evident that is what I am. That mysterious, unknown, without direction, without anything that I can measure or I can tell. It's if the world is individuality, so let's say the world is, let's put a whole basket of things all together and they're all the same in my experience. Individuality, knowledge, awareness, consciousness, perception, the ability to know anything, to be a knower, to be an individual, all of that I experience as the same. And it is exactly what I'm not. What all of that is what I dream. Those are things that I produce when I dream. So it's not what I am, it's just a dream. It's just aspects of the dream. So what I am, and when I say I am, it's us. What we are, all of that stuff that I just mentioned has characteristics. It has qualities. It has experience. It's all knowable to some degree. There's some recognition of something. And all of that, there's something I can know about any of that. And what we are is we don't even know ourselves. We don't even know if we are a self. We don't even know if we are. So the first question, am I, was never answered. Will never be answered. Can never be answered. Because there are no answers in what I am, what we are. You tell me how a never-ending mystery, an eternal mystery, even to itself, has answers. And how sad that would be if there were answers. Because that would be finite. And what we are is not finite. It is abstract and mysterious and unknowable. And if you can't even get past the first question of am I, then I guess what you can do is you can just start asking endless questions and pretending you have answers to them. And you can just keep doing that. On and on and on and on and on and on and on. But still, am I is not answered. Can't be answered, never will be answered. And again, that is only the experience I am having. That if I ask myself that question, there has never been, and seems obvious that there never will be an answer to that question. I mean, it's obvious beyond obvious. Not because I just have this sensation that, oh, that question will just never be answered. It's because the very characteristic of no answer, of not knowing, of infinite mystery, even to myself, is what I am. So the question will never be answered, but that's the answer to the question, is that it will never be answered. And again, now I'm not making a definitive statement, it'll never be answered. It's just my experience that what I am, there are no answers on it. And if I want answers, then I can find those in the same place that I find knowledge, which is just the dream, where there are things that can be known. And so there are questions and there are answers to those questions because there's knowledge to answer them with. That's the experience that I'm having. So if I go and get knowledge at some workshop, it's the opposite of what I am. If I have awareness, it's the opposite of what I am. Consciousness, the opposite. Perception, the opposite. Knowing things. Being aware of oneself or the nature of reality. There is no awareness in what we are. I can say, well, I notice some characteristics of it. One thing I know for sure, I mean, and everybody knows this. This is my experience. Now, again, this is my experience. So I'm sharing this as though, I'm saying it as though it's the truth. But I'm not saying it's the truth for you or for anyone else, or that it is even the truth in any way whatsoever. It's my experience. Every single person that has ever lived and is alive right now knows that they have never experienced any change at all, ever. No change. So that's one characteristic that I can detect, and it's obvious that there is no change in what I am. So, tell me, how could there possibly be enlightenment or awakening? Because there's no change in what I am. And all of the apparent changes that seem to be happening have no effect on what I am. It just stays the same. I've never experienced a change at all. And I mean, like, no change. Not 1/1,000,000th of 1/1,000,000th of 1/1,000,000th of 1% of change. The experience that I'm having is that I'm absolutely changeless. So, nothing that happens in the world has any effect on what I am and what you are. It's always the same. Always. It's mysterious. I don't know what that changeless thing is. It's what we are, but I can't tell what it is other than that it's changeless. And another thing is that it seems like no matter where I look, look forward and backwards. I'm looking the same direction. It just keeps going. Maybe. I can't actually tell what it is. But it is what I am and what you are. And that not knowing what it actually is what it is what we are. Knowing is exactly equal to individuality. It's just a dream. And what we are, and this is just my experience, there's no knowing in what we are. And all of this stuff everybody professes to know achieves one thing. All of the knowing, which actually there is no knowing, just that's my experience. It's totally non-existent. The whole process of knowing and knowledge is just complete. It's not actually happening. And it's obvious to me that everybody is aware of this. But the thing is that knowing and that knowledge is so precious because of what it does. And what it does is it creates the knower, the individual, the aspect of the whole that can be aware of other aspects of the whole. It's not actually happening. But I'm not saying that's how it is. I'm telling you that's my experience. There are no knowers. There is no knowledge. There is no knowing. How can there be knowing? And how can there be aspects of a whole that can be aware of other aspects of the whole when the whole doesn't even know if it's a whole, if it even exists? Everything other than that is duality. All knowing creates the knower, creates duality. Doesn't actually create it, other than in the same way that a dream is created. So, knowledge, knower, known, it's like a tapestry that's being woven endlessly. But how can you weave something out of nothing? Just keep going through the motion of weaving and hope that there's no recognition, that there is no knowing, at least yet, at least the best I can tell. So far, there is no capacity to know if you even are, if you exist. if there is any sort of reality to what we are. So think about this for a minute. I'm going to bring this all the way back around to the idea that you could hear this as contradicting and possibly invalidating the teaching of every single enlightened person, guru, saint. It could very easily be seen as contradicting all of their teachings. So, and if you don't see how that is, it's pretty obvious. Every single teaching, this is my experience, this is how I experience it. There is not one exception to this that I have found. I've looked. I haven't found one. Every single guru, saint, teacher, they all, without exception, every single one of them speaks about the way things are. So people will come to a meeting and ask questions. What should I do about this? Or what's the meaning of this or that? Or how should I conduct my life? Or what is there a way to become enlightened? Is there such a thing as enlightenment? What happened to you? So if someone asks that to a supposedly enlightened person or someone where there's no one there. So every single one of those questions and a million others just like it get answers from gurus. Those questions are answered. Every single one. And every other one. In one way or another, the questions will be answered. And so what you have is the question and the answer. Or the knower and the known. So the knower seeks the known. The questioner seeks the answer to the question. So that's the difference between what I'm saying and what every other teacher and teaching that I have ever found. That's the difference. They all have answers to questions. So you have A, the question, and B, the answer. Even if the answer is there is no answer. The difference, what I'm saying here is, I am only sharing my experience, and I am not engaging in the imagined process of somehow being aware of something other than myself that I can describe to somebody. The nature of reality, the nature of enlightenment. Or even that I can be aware of, if the whole world is myself, that I can answer a question about the world in the context of it being myself. In other words, I can answer a question about myself. Because I can't answer a question about myself. If I start right at that point and ask the most basic question, am I? There's no answer. So how can I answer any other question? And every guru answers questions. Every teacher answers questions. Every person I have ever heard who talks about spirituality in one way or another as someone who's sharing it or teaching or guiding people or just sharing, they all answer questions. So, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, and I'm not invalidating them. So, and this is where I just would like to clarify this. So I'm not saying anyone, any teacher, I'm not going to name any, but I'm not saying any teacher is wrong, because I don't know. I don't know what is happening at this very instant. Am I standing in my basement talking? It seems like I am, but I don't actually know if I am. So if I don't even know if there's a me, and is there a me here that's doing that? I don't know. I have no idea. So if I can't get past that question, so ask that basic question and can't get past it, then how could I possibly, if I just ask myself, was Ramana a real teacher? Or a real guru, or was he enlightened? I can't answer that question. I can tell you my experience, and that's it. Just like I can say my experience is I'm standing in my basement right now. I can just report it. So my experience of Ramana is that he, along with every other teacher, operates within the framework of knower and known. It's duality. The questioner and the answer. The seeker and that what is sought. It's two. Ramana said, happiness is your nature. That's just one quote I can remember off the top of my head. So, he's telling you something about your nature. Happiness is your nature. That's pure duality. Because what it says is, I'm going to tell you what the nature of this certain thing is. In other words, that certain thing exists. It has characteristics and qualities that are knowable. And so therefore, there's a knower. Or maybe the language that's used is very non-dualistic sounding. So we could talk about how you exist and don't exist at the same time, or you're an eternal infinite being, the source of all and all at the same time. So it could sound, it a lot of times does sound very non-dualistic, but it operates completely within the framework of duality, or knower and known, by sharing what is known. So telling you things about anything or yourself, or and explaining what you are, how you are, what the process is of your awakening to your true nature. Or maybe not even awakening to your true nature, but you were always awake to your true nature, and there was simply a dream of sleep that never even actually happened. I mean, it's very, very clever, all sounding very non-dualistic, and at the same time, like, operating within the framework of being aware of something that I can know and something that I can share with you. It's total duality. And the experience for me is that when I say I, it's us. It's everybody. It's the whole everything. I don't even know if I exist. So how could I ever get to happiness is my nature? It's great. It's a little piece of knowledge. It's something I can know. I can walk around and tell people, happiness is my nature. Then someone could disagree with me and say, no, it's not. Actually, my guru said that peace is your nature. And someone else could say, no, it's not. Actually, energy is your nature. We could have a big, giant argument about what your nature is. And all of the millions of opinions, because each one's slightly different and nuanced, we'll just fight it out till we decide finally what your nature is. So, when knower and known is the dynamic, then it doesn't matter what you know or how the knower is created. So my nature is energy, no different than Jesus died for your sins, no different than you are matter, just a living organism, and when you die, it'll be over. All three things. You say something different, but they all work within the dynamic of knower and known. There is no knowing, no knowledge, and no knower and known in what we are. We are a never-ending mystery. Always have been, always will be. And I'm not saying that's true. Take it to the bank. That's my experience. What's yours? Have you somehow figured out how to know something about yourself? Have you somehow become aware that you are, that the world is, and all of the things that go along with that? Because I haven't. And I've been trying. And it does not seem possible at all. And all the people who claim to know, I don't see it. It's clear as day. There is no knowing. And no knower, which arises out of knowing. No individual, which exists only as the belief that I am an individual. I know that I exist. What we are is an absolutely perfect mystery. So perfect that we're even a mystery to ourselves. A mystery that stretches out forever. A perfect, absolute, infinite mystery. That is what we are.